Welcome everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening across the world. And welcome to this Nursing Now Challenge information webinar. And the purpose of this webinar today is really just to share information about the Nursing Now Challenge and to really reach out across the world in hearing from Nursing Now education institutions, Nursing Now challenge programs, just sharing about the Nursing Now Challenge and what it is about. We've got an amazing panel that we've got with us this today, and really looking forward to being able to hear from them and really to get their perspectives on what it takes to be the future challengers and the future leaders of tomorrow. Uh, Without further ado, I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Munashe Nyika. I'm a young nurse from Harare in Zimbabwe, and I'm currently in the UK working towards my master's in public health. I'm a member of the Nursing Now Challenge Board and also a member and co-chair of the Challenges Committee, which is an amazing committee of young nurses and midwives from across the world that are challenging the health status quo and looking forward to being able to have a lot of impact through the Challenges Committee. Uh, we will start this morning with our first speaker, and I would like to introduce Lord Nigel Crisp, the co-chair of Nursing Now. And Lord Nigel Crisp will just share on the inspiration and the ambition of the Nursing Now Challenge. Great to have you, Nigel.
Hey, thank you, Menashe. Lovely to be with you. Just a couple of words, then, I think, from me on where this came from and what the thinking behind it was. So first of all, I'm assuming that everyone on this group knows about the Nursing Now campaign, which ran from 2018 to 2021, and which was aimed at improving health globally by raising the profile and status of nursing. And you know, just even before it started at the ICN Congress in Barcelona in 2017, a group of young nurses came up to me at the end of a presentation I did and said, "What are you going to do about young nurses? You talk about senior nurses all the time and getting people onto boards and so on, but what about young nurses? We're the future." So good to know the young nurses have been challenging for a long time. And that's really, I remembered that, and the opportunity to do something about it came when we decided we wanted to do a couple of big things to sort of symbolize what Nursing Now was all about. And we decided in 2019 that we would launch the then called Nightingale Challenge, so that in the year of the nurse and the midwife, 2020, we would have employers around the world providing development opportunities for young nurses. And you know, we wanted 20,000 young nurses involved. In the end, we got 32,000, I think, involved in the year, which was absolutely fantastic. But the thinking behind it was that young nurses are very much the future, and they're going to be learning clinically, but actually they also need to learn about leadership, about how systems work, about advocacy, about all those things that make you not just a professional, but a really effective transformational leader. And that's really where this idea came from. But a couple of key points about it. One is it was focused on employers, not on nursing schools and nursing colleges or universities or wherever, but on employers, who are the people who have the responsibility for the constant development of their people, of their staff. And it was focused on doing things locally. It wasn't a global program. It was actually what was important to you in Papua New Guinea or in Bermuda or wherever it is that you happen to be. We weren't trying to sell a model of UK nursing or Australian nursing or US nursing or Spanish nursing or whatever. It was very much about what was important to people locally and what you needed to know in order to become, in the longer term, a leader in your own system, not in our system, but in your own system. So very devolved, but putting in place a system that supported people to run these programs globally, and then doing lots of networking, getting partnerships going and so on. So that was all the thinking about it, free and flexible. and flexible in the extent that whilst we were counting the young nurses involved, we were happy to see older nurses involved, new starters, late entrants to the profession perhaps. And of course, let's also remember that in all this, that it's always important to have multidisciplinary training and development as well, multi-professional, so that we're not just sitting in our own little box. But for now, the Nursing Now Challenge, and I think colleagues are going to talk about what the future holds. I'm talking about the past. It was really important that we really focused on the young nurses, on the younger nurses, by which we said 35 and under, because these are the people who are going to be the leaders of the future. And I think, you know, our evaluation of our program will be able to be done in 15 or 20 years' time, when the young nurses who've been on this program are actually amongst the leaders in the profession, and not just in the profession, in the health systems around the world. And my final message is to young nurses and to colleagues is I remain even more convinced now than I was when we set up Nursing Now, that nurses have got a bigger role to play in the future. You do a massive amount now, but actually there's a much bigger role in so many different areas, particularly primary care, long-term conditions, leadership and so on. So thank you very much, Manashi. That's the background and where this all came from.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nigel. And I would like to just echo your statement that it would be really interesting to see 15 to 20 years from now, in looking at where young nurses are going to be, and the future leaders of tomorrow, and the impact that they will be bringing globally. So our next speaker will be Professor Lisa Bayless-Precht, who is the program director for the Nursing Now Challenge, and she will be sharing on why the Nursing Now Challenge and what it can offer.
Thank you so much, Manashi, and lovely to hear from you, Lord Nigel. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. And I just want to say, you know, can never forget that without Lord Chris, none of this would have happened. And one of the most enjoyable things in my career to date, actually, has been learning about global nursing and being able to have this wonderful opportunity to support early career nurses and midwives across the world. So I'm so delighted and so very grateful for people like Lord Chris and indeed Professor Jill White that have been incredibly supportive throughout this journey and can continue to be alongside us. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where we're taking the Nursing Now Challenge to from the brilliant success of the Nightingale Challenge. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a reminder about the Nursing Now Challenge. I can't believe it was only June the 1st that we flipped from the Nightingale Challenge to the Nursing Now Challenge. And just last week, we had another 100 nurses and midwives sign up from across the world. And we're growing strong. We're over 35,000 now in terms of people signed up to the Nursing Now Challenge, and very much in the spirit of what Lord Crisp said. It's really important that we keep the employers focused around this agenda, that it is about the next generation of leadership, and it's really important that it's relevant to what people are doing in the different countries. And I think one of the things that you know, we've learned so much is about the amazing innovations that happen in different countries and how important it is to share those examples, to create these networks that you amazing early career nurses and midwives seem to be able to just flourish in very quickly, and also to put the spotlight on the superb work that you're doing. So it's so exciting that actually the things that the sort of, if you like, the standards that almost Lord Chris set us at the beginning, they've really been kept, and they're really important for the continued sustainability of this agenda. So networking, very relevant to local people, keeping employers engaged and making sure that we share the brilliance that happens across the world, I think will be key in amplifying the work that nurses and midwives do. Next slide, please. So we're very much focused on continuing to raise the profile, but I've added another P in, if you like, and that's the power, because I think the power of early career nurses and midwives, and what they can bring to the rest of the profession is incredibly powerful. It's been really interesting that as we're progressing this journey, senior nurses are saying, I can't believe that I never focused more time and energy on the early career nurses. I've really took this sponsorship forward and I'm learning a lot. This sort of reverse mentorship that's happening is so exciting. Mid-career nurses are saying, well, how can I help support early career nurses? So I think by putting the spotlight on the very beginning of nursing careers, it gives wonderful amplification of actually what others can do to join this movement. And I'm really excited to say that we've started now to engage universities and nursing colleges so that we can start to really instill this concept of global healthcare into undergraduate curriculums across the world. And there's some countries that are doing amazing work to really help student nurses and midwives to understand what their role can be in the global health agenda. But I think that together and collectively working with colleges and universities in this space will be so exciting and really help our nurses to think global all the time and to think about the impact that they can make, not just locally, but globally as well. So really excited about this new development. And we continue to support this concept of this global network. And that's one of the most joyous things I think about the work. It is about that networking, finding those mentors, finding that support infrastructure to enable you to stay strong in your work as a nurse and a midwife, because we absolutely know that it's a tough job. And I think the last 18 months, I think it is now, with COVID has been really challenging. So supporting each other is never more important. Next slide, please. And the other important thing for us always to remember is, yeah, it's great to celebrate nurses and midwives and the wonderful work that we do, but it's all about delivering more and better healthcare to everybody across the world. And we need to keep putting the spotlight on the things that nurses do so brilliantly, such as nurse-led clinics, the specialist roles that they have, developing midwifery services, the primary healthcare impact that nurses and midwives can have in their communities, and the invaluable work of health promotion and disease prevention. And of course, the COVID pandemic has really emphasised just how powerful nurses and midwives can be in helping to really educate people on how best to stay safe through a pandemic. So must be, we keep the focus on this more and better healthcare for everybody at the heart of what we're trying to achieve. And here's just some quotes really that just blow me away all the time when I hear what people are saying about the Nightingale Challenge in the report that was written and the Nursing Now Challenge as to why they're doing it. And it's the fact that it's really opening people's minds to thinking differently, to not keeping early career nurses and midwives down, to not protecting them and shielding them for many years. You don't have to be sort of working on the front line and not stepping up to leadership challenges. You can do this right the way. We've trained our nurses to be critical thinkers. We've trained them to read and analyse papers, to be at the forefront of care, and we must now let them do it. So I think the movement is as much about helping people to think differently about what early career nurses can do as anything else. And there are many quotes like this, but lots of people are enjoying delivering this programme, and that has to be a good thing. And our latest figures, don't need to, we've got more work to do in some of the WHO regions, as you can see, but I'm truly, truly delighted that we continue the momentum. And it's so exciting to see now we've not only got alumni of Nightingale Challenge, but we've also got employers that are onto their second and thinking about their third year of delivering early career leadership in this way. So incredibly exciting times. Lots of partnerships are happening, and through the Global Solutions Initiative, we're finding new partners and new ways to inspire and engage people in all sorts of different ways. So I really look forward to that number being 100,000 at the top in pink and probably beyond as we forge forward. And some of the things that we've learned so far, I guess this is threaded throughout what I've said, but I can't emphasize enough the catalyst for change that I think it provides. The energy that this has brought to some of the employers of nurses and midwives that they hadn't thought about before. The early career nurses and midwives themselves are just, I can't almost explain, but they're brimming with energy, enthusiasm. Menashe is here today. We have people that dial in at all different times. Early career nurses and midwives are willing to step up to the plate, senior nurses ready to step up to the plate to support the next generation. It really has been a catalyst for change that we must keep going. We also know the network is important, but that's not just about connecting people. How can we share materials? How can we create those mentor relationships that help keep nurses nursing? And how can we continue to explore opportunities to partner with each other for mutual benefit? And that's something that the Global Solution Initiative, I think, is really starting to motor on. And of course, the pandemic, I do think, and people have written to me, and we've got supportive quotes, that just sometimes through coming together to talk about not COVID issues through the pandemic has been useful. So we hope to continue to provide hours of insight to nurses and midwives all over the world that actually just help them to lift their mood and lift their spirits when times are really difficult. But it goes without doubt that now more than ever, we must commit to nurses and midwives. And I think everything we're doing is really, really helping to strengthen that case. And what can the Nursing Now Challenge offers you? Well, as if I've probably not said enough, but I think for the early career nurses and midwives, keep watching this space, because we are looking at technology and thinking about what social platforms we can develop to help you easily connect and share information together. And being part of a university and now looking to work with other universities, who knows what opportunities we'll be able to develop together. Partnerships are really important, and delighted that for this phase we've got Health Education England that are going to talk soon about their global partnership, and THET as well, that are working around really interesting quality improvement science. And we've also got JPIGO that's going to do some interesting work with us early in the new year, but I can't say too much now. But our opportunity to partner is ever growing. And we also want to make sure that we provide world-class university education and training materials. And again, that's something that we're going to look at. We've got loads of free access, high quality materials that can be utilised without having to reinvent wheels or waste money. So that's something that we're trying to focus on, but making sure, of course, that they are free and flexible, as Lord Crisp said, and that they are relevant to people in the different countries in which they work. And we're also very, very keen to look at who we can work with in terms of research, evidence and practice. And again, lots of interesting conversations are happening with different funders to see how we can make sure we continue to evaluate what we're doing and that we learn the lessons from this fantastic initiative. And how to accept the challenge? Well, I think you can go onto the website to do this. Hopefully it's 6 simple steps, but if you do have any problems, then don't hesitate to contact us. But we're trying to make this really simple for you to do so that you can sign up, get the support you need and get going with your programme. And the Global Solution Initiative is something that I'd like to also just flag, because this was an idea that came up actually in the beginning of 2020, and it was by Hannah Finch, the wonderful communications director, that said, I think we could do something more with our early career nurses. What if we put out some challenges and seen what solutions that they could come up with? And they have been absolutely amazing. And it is something that's grown from strength on a weekly basis. And this is a really exciting opportunity for you as an early career nurse or midwife to look to find a solution to a new or a long-standing problem, work with a partner that we will have secured, and possibly receive some kind of gift. That might be in the form of money. And with the Wish Foundation, they wanted to pledge a financial gift. but in other ways it can be what Lord Crisp has kindly done, and that's to provide some mentorship and support to you, to provide you an opportunity to speak at a conference, to be able to publish a paper or present a poster, just something to put on your CV that you wouldn't normally be able to achieve. And this is an element of our work that we are going to continue in earnest and look to engage as many people as possible. And just to say, here's what we've been doing from July 2020 to June 2021. I won't go through them in detail, but there are a variety of things that we've been doing. We started with Same You, we've just finished with the World Innovation Summit for Health, and we've got lots of things that we're doing in between. But I think it's really important, and I've just been speaking earlier at a conference this morning to actually students that are on a digital program, actually a global digital program, about how they can come forward with new ideas to think differently and be bold and supported in doing something really different. So please watch this space, because there's lots of opportunities for you to shine and do something really different that hasn't been done before. Some examples of our winners are here, and it's so exciting to see the different countries that they've come from in the world, the different types of people that have engaged in it. And I think one of the most important things here has been the support that these individuals have been able to get from either their universities or their employers, or just colleagues that want to help them be successful. So many congratulations to all these winners, and we look forward to lots more of these people coming forward in the rest of the year. And things that you can also do to support the Nursing Now Challenge. Well, one thing is to keep talking about it. And it is for you to go and knock on the door of your employer and say, hey, why aren't we doing this in our organisation? There's opportunities for you to talk about this fantastic global community at conferences that you may be attending or papers that you might be writing. Why not host a meeting and get communities excited about what it is that you can achieve together? And when you can actually get people signed up and where that's been achieved, don't forget to celebrate it, to talk about it, because actually we're here to support you. This is your movement, really. We're just a way of helping you to achieve that. But I really think it's so important that this challenge is owned by each and everybody that's part of it. It's not a top-down approach whatsoever. It's about us supporting you to be the best you possibly can. And thank you so very much for listening. Back over to you, Manashi.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And really just to share how amazing it is to hear Nightingale Nursing Now Challenge participants from across the world really sharing the impact that the program has had toward their careers. It's really amazing to be able to get young nurses to share about their stories and how through being part of this program, they've been able to learn leadership skills and to be able to network and connect with others from across the world. So that's really amazing. And really excited about being able to have students with the transition into having students and colleges involved as well. That's really going to be amazing, and looking forward to that. I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Professor Jill White, who is going to be sharing about supporting the future of the nursing and midwifery workforce. Professor Jill White is a Nursing Now Challenge board member.
Thank you, Anashi. Thank you very much, and how lovely to have the opportunity to spend a few minutes talking to you. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I am sitting this evening, the Camaragal people of the Eora Nation of Australia, and acknowledge their leaders, past, present, and emerging. Emerging leaders are so important in all aspects of our work and all aspects around the world. I want to take us backwards to bring us forwards, if I may. I want to just go back and have a look at some of the elements of the Nursing Now campaign, because they are the bedrock of how we are trying to move forward, how we are moving forward in what's now called the Nursing Now Challenge. And I absolutely vividly remember a phone call late one night from Lord Crisp saying, in the very early stages, saying, I need some people in Australia to sign on to the idea of providing leadership programs for young nurses. And I need it very quickly because we want to launch it very soon. And within 24 hours, no thanks to me, but thanks to the extraordinary nurses at Queensland Health and South East Sydney Local Health District, and we're going to hear from some of them in a little while, they said yes, like that. They said yes immediately. And I was able to say to Lord Crisp within 24 hours, here are 2 large sections of Australia who are signing on to what was then the Nightingale Challenge. As part of the work of Nursing Now, I just want to remind us that there were 5 critical aims that Nursing Now was looking at: effective practice, evidence, leadership, policy, and investment. And I think by the end of the campaign, we'd done a fantastic job in relation to the sharing of effective practice. We had, at the very least, the 31,000 nurses who'd been through the Nightingale Challenge, but we had Nursing Now groups in 126 countries talking to each other about their practice, about what worked, what didn't work, what the barriers were, and what they did to get around those barriers. We had shared evidence. We had shared the research base from which people could go to their health services, go to their governments, and talk about why there needed to be an investment in nursing for the health of their countries. As you know, excuse me, I have a non-COVID cold. We know about the focus on leadership, and that focus on leadership was at all ages, but most particularly focusing on the young. One of the most important parts of policy, I think, that we did was that there was an education within the Nightingale Challenge and more broadly of nurses about what policy is and how one goes about changing policy. And it's not about thumping and saying, I need a seat at the table. It's about getting in early and trying to formulate what is the problem and what might the solution be, which is a much, much earlier stage than having a seat at a table. Once you've got a seat at a consultation table, the solution is 9/10 fixed. It's got a whole lot of people who've bought into the idea, and changing it is very difficult at that stage. And investment in better regulatory systems, better standards, better education, better training. Now, when you think about all of these things, what Nursing Now was a short campaign for a long agenda, a long-term agenda. It was going to take, we knew at the time, a long time to change some of the entrenched problems that relate to nurses being able to work to their full scope of practice, nurses being recognised in the way they need to be. But why we were so keen to make sure that early career nurses were engaged in this is that it's the early career nurses understanding that they have a role, understanding what politics is about, and not seeing it as something that's other than nursing. It's absolutely steeped in it because it's about the allocation of resources. Now, you might say the important thing for me is my relationship with my patients, and absolutely that's true. But if you don't take a broader view as well and become engaged and involved in who makes the resource decisions, how are they made, you may be constrained, you will be constrained in what you are able to offer your patients, who your patients might be, how you can work as a nurse, changing things like the legislation that relates to nurse practitioners and what nurse practitioners can or cannot do. These are all inherently political and come down to nurses understanding how to work within political systems. So going backwards and reinforcing those 5 things is really to set the stage for what we want these programs for the Nursing Now Challenge to really be about. to have young nurses, early career nurses, understand that they have got a very solid platform to jump off from and to be the ones who carry this forward, whether that's that they work within their own institution, whether they make sure that they understand who their local member of parliament is, whether they in fact then stand for parliament themselves. Here in Australia, we have 2 nurses currently in our federal parliament and nurses in almost every one of our state parliaments. And it makes a difference. It changes the conversation in relation to health. So the world is your oyster. The Nursing Now Challenge, we are hoping will help you on your way. And you will notice that the Nursing Now Challenge is broadened from the Nightingale Challenge in ways that Lisa went through. One of them that I'm particularly interested in is that notion of the Challenger Committee and the fact that we are wanting to lace together and keep together all of the nurses who've graduated from Nightingale Challenge programs, because we don't want to lose you now that you've finished that piece of work. It's not finished, you've just taken the first step. The other bit that I'm particularly interested in too is the idea of students and that we're engaging students. I'm thinking here in Sydney at the University of Sydney, where we're signed on to this idea that from halfway through the program, we will be engaging with students who are showing an interest in global health. I remember when I was teaching, every time I'd give lectures on global health, I'd have a stream of students come down to the bottom of the stage and they'd say, how can I be involved? And it was terribly difficult to tell them how they could. Now there's a way forward. I'll stop there because I think I'm going to have a cough.
Oh, okay, sure. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jill. And it's really amazing to hear about the impact of the Nursing Now Challenge program in Australia, and really about supporting the future of the nursing and midwifery workforce. I would like to introduce our next speaker, who is going to be sharing about the Emerging Leaders program and how we plan to support our students. The speaker will be coming from the Australian College of Nursing. I think that's Professor Kylie Ward.
Thank you. Very kind of you. Hello to everyone around the world, and I'm really impressed to see the time zones. It's very early hours in the morning for some people in Mexico and other places. It's an honour to be here with you all. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians from all of the lands on which we are on, and pay respects to the Ngunnawal people where I am based in very cold Canberra. I wanted to talk to you about the Emerging Nurse Leader program in Australia. It actually started in a different format in 2012 to 2015. And when I started as the CEO of the Australian College of Nursing at the end of 2015, I did an assessment of the program, and they were putting 5 people through a year at a cost of about $50,000, but only 2, maybe 3 were graduating, and it wasn't a good investment or a return on investment. So I actually cut the program. I let those people finish. We didn't launch anything in 2016. And what I want to talk to you about is in 2017, we relaunched an Emerging Nurse Leader program. So if anybody is interested in this program, I can tell you about what not to do and about lessons learned. I won't discuss them here. I'll tell you about what we've done over the last 5 years and how successful it has been. But firstly, I just want to preface by saying language is very important to me, to the nursing profession, and to the psyche of what we are looking at doing at the Australian College of Nursing. So we make no reference to age because there's inherent unconscious or subconscious bias with that. And we also, I've stopped the use of the word junior nurse because I felt like that automatically put people at an early stage in their career at a disadvantage. particularly with people who were more senior and then acted or behaved that way. And realistically, we all should be committed to lifelong learning. So the Emerging Nurse Leader program, as it is today, was launched in 2017, and we always refer to early career nurses. And I'll move to the next slide. And so the particular interest of this program now is it's over 5 years. The first year in stage 1 is that undergraduate nurses in their 3rd year or honours year are empowered to learn, and then we go stage 2 actually starts as 1st year graduates, 2nd year, 3rd year, and then 3rd, 4th, 5th, up to 6th year we will take people. And the idea is that they need to reapply every year. It's not automatic. When you get in, you stay. And you'll see we look at learn, grow, reach, achieve, and lead. And this really, the whole component of this program is really about fast tracking a leadership journey. We now cater for registered nurses for 50 nurses. And in 2019, we introduced a program for enrolled nurses in the same way. And we really look at giving invaluable opportunities to all of the participants to gain profile, to network, to access, and develop really their own reputation and profile outside of whatever their employer could do. And each year has a different requirement. And we would on average get around 1,000 expressions of interest for those 50 positions. So I've always said that this created an energy and a momentum, and we turn away fabulous people. So the people that are in these programs from undergraduate to 6th year at that early career stage really do get heavily invested in, mentored. They will be publishing. There might be media opportunities, speaking opportunities. They'll have opportunities to participate in policy development, leadership development. There's a whole range that has weightings through it. So I'll move to the next slide. I'm happy to take any questions. So these are some of the things. There is an expectation. There's 9 months in the program, and in the early years, it will be around brand, image, presentation, CV, how to get an interview, skills that some might consider soft, but people who are selected are already leaders. And for us, leaders aren't a stage in your career. Leadership is inherent at every age and stage. And this is why the people that come into this program, we really just want to fast track them and let them know that the days of needing a position or a rank or seniority gave you importance is long gone in our image and mind for the Australian College of Nursing. And what you bring to the table and how you want to pursue your career should be, you should be able to navigate at your own pace and not be limited by really the traditions of the past that were quite hierarchical. And we connect every emerging nurse leader with a mentor who is a very valued member or fellow of the college and very senior in their career. And they are brilliant in and of themselves. So there's just some of the opportunities to get published, to get exposure and profile, and build connections that they may not otherwise have received. And I think I saw Prachi on here, which she's just one of our outstanding emerging nurse leaders. I'll move to the next slide. I know we've got some great speakers to get through. I don't want to take too much time, but you can see whether it's for audiences of 1,000 or 100, or whether it's media opportunities, these are people who stand out. And I think, as Lord Nigel Crest said earlier, these are our future, and it's not around age. It really, that is a component, but these people who come in, whether it's mid-career, midlife, however people enter, they shouldn't be held back. And so you'll see that diversity and inclusion is very important to us for these individuals. And in fact, one I can think of, Luke from Brisbane, is chaired our National Working Party on Gender Equality for Men in Nursing. And that was a social impact campaign to change the landscape. So there's lots of opportunities that I would never have had. I would have loved them, but didn't get to. So I'll just move to the next slide. Or is that our last slide? That may well, but yeah, I did think there was another. Very proud, we've got Serena here and Meg. And so these were two of our emerging nurse leaders who went and presented in Singapore at ICN and presented our program. And I think that forever, Meg's now working, advising a Minister for Health in the ACT. Serena, her career has just taken off. And so it's really just quite humbling for us to know that whatever we can do in our guardianship as really seniors of the profession and within our professional body, to be able to navigate and support the careers of emerging nurse leaders is quite profound. And so we now graduate 50 a year, or even more than 50 with our ENL program, but we have up to 60 ENLs who graduate. And that same 50,000 plus investment, we send them to conferences, we bring them to different events around the country, and certainly give them that profile to head into their career. So I'm happy to help in any way, but to see some of our emerging nurse leaders present our initiatives on a national platform like ICN, we were all very proud. And that's really it from us. I'm happy to share. I think that every country, we put a lot of money into the program, but the concept and the philosophy is there. All of our coaches and mentors volunteer their time. And I think that it helps to bridge the gap of knowing that you really want the best kind of people, and like attracts like. So we bring the best at every stage. So mid-career and senior career nurses will be supporting emerging nurse leaders, and they'll be looking after us one day. So it's the best investment we could ever make. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Professor Kylie. And it really is inspiring to hear and learn about the Emerging Nurse Leaders Program. Our next speaker will be David Keane from the Global Engagement Education Lead from Health Education England. And he'll be together with Jude Jones, Talent Group's Project Manager and Future Midwife Lead.
Thank you. So I'll share my screen because I've got a short presentation, and hopefully this will work. I think I've got the hang of this by now. Can everyone see that? I need yeah. Good. So my name's David Keane, and thanks for that introduction. I'm the Senior Lead for Education at the Global Health Partnerships Director at Health Education England. I've come to talk to you about the talent groups. Jude can't be with us this morning. She sends her apologies, but she promises she'll make it along to the next one. Jude is our project manager and brings so much expertise into how to navigate learning in this way that I'm just about to talk to you about. I'm a nurse by background. Most of my career I've spent in education and training at a large London hospital, moved over to Health Education England, which is a national body which is part of the NHS in England, looking after health education and training of their healthcare workforce. Moved over to Health Education England about 6 years ago, and aligned to this project as well, I'm also just started my PhD looking at leadership development in nurses. So I'm really interested to be here, really interested to see the questions and to hear about what else is going on all over the world. So I'm going to talk to you very briefly about our talent groups. And you can see there are a few logos because this is it's a collaboration between several organisations funded by Health Education England. The project is run out of Salford University, and that's where the expertise in delivering this kind of project really sits. We're working very closely with THET, who you're going to hear about next, I believe. And then, of course, the Nursing Now Challenge team keeps us on track and makes sure we're aligned to all the other great pieces of work that are going on. There's some key social media links there for you if anybody wants to link up to the groups and follow our progress. So talent groups, so it's an acronym. It stands for Technically Assisted Learning and Education for Nursing and Midwifery Teams. So what they are They are virtual communities, and we're setting them up in different countries. Each community has 20 early career nurses, or midwives, or nurse midwives, depending on the registration status across different countries. And each group will be supported by 3 senior nurse or midwife coordinators. Each group will have 12 months input from the project team to support, particularly working with the coordinators in how they can facilitate and ensure the groups evolve in a really productive and kind of educational way. We think about 1 or 4 hours, 1 to 4 hours a week input from the participants and similar input from the coordinators as well. They work on a concept. I'm going to talk about the theory really briefly on the next slide, so I won't go too much into that, but they work on a theory of kind of group directed learning, and the idea is that each group finds its learning goals and its learning outcomes in a very context specific way. It's a safe space for conversations and for participants to reflect with colleagues. It's based on the THET Pulse platform. If you haven't checked that out yet, have a look. It's a great platform that is not for profit, which means that they're not collecting lots of data on everybody. There's no adverts on there. And it allows participants to connect, and all of us really, whoever wants to get on there, to connect with other internationally global health minded individuals. So this is some of the theory. I could talk, if anyone wants a whole study day on this, myself and my colleague Jude could speak all day about the theory that sits behind these talent groups. One of the key premises is this Lev and Wenger work, which looks at communities of practice. And this is the idea that in everybody on this call will be members of lots of different communities of practice. And these are where groups come together with a shared concern or a shared learning objectives, and they learn from each other. So some examples of that are beyond these groups could be like a knitting club, where a group of people come together and they knit together and they learn from each other. So there's not that didactic, I am the senior person, I teach everybody. There's a group that comes together and they learn different skills and they discuss with each other and develop their skills together. Another example, more professionally related, might just be a group of people that you regularly go to lunch with, and you sit and you talk about the issues that you face in your workplace, and you find ways together to work around those issues and to gain support from your community. So that's one of the real underlining theories of this. Another theory from Wenger is the social artists. I thought I'd put that up there because I love this theory, and this is around the members of the communities of practice and the people within those communities that really bring the communities together. And these are leaders. They're not didactic teachers. They cultivate a community. They lead by creating collaboration and inviting participation. They create trust quickly, and they're skilled at bringing people together and judging the social situation and making sure that the community gels and learns from each other. So that at the beginning of each of these talent groups, the social artists, the key people, will be our senior nurse coordinators. And there's a lot of work that the project team does with our coordinators at the start to give them the expertise and the depth of knowledge to be able to bring the groups together. We hope that by the end of the 12 months of the groups, that most original members of the groups will be the social artists. So the groups will be self-sustaining by the end. And then, of course, there's social learning theory, which really kind of underpins all of this. And I think a great example of this that I was told right at the beginning when I was learning about learning theories is this idea of coffee room learning, that we've all got, I think some of the key points in certainly in my career, the key learning that I've had hasn't been sat in a classroom and listening to a teacher. It's been sat in the coffee room and discussing something real that's just happened and understanding the reasons for that. So the next slide kind of relates some of that then to leadership development. So I think I think leadership means so many different things to so many, to really lots of people. You ask people what leadership is to them, and you get lots of different theories and ideas, and none of them are particularly the one or wrong, but they're really, it just shows that the broadness of the concept of leadership. For me, it's more like a craft than an innate ability. So you need to develop your behaviors and skills and understand yourself so you can become a better leader. And that's where this idea of community of practice, this idea of people coming together and learning from each other really will help, we hope, support leadership development. So I've put some examples here of kind of trying to break some real kind of, giving some examples of how the groups might work in kind of a real life situation. So I think for leadership, you might be given responsibilities. So your manager might put you in charge of a shift. You might have people that report to you for line management responsibilities. You might be role modeling or advocating for others. So that's really kind of obvious skills that or obvious responsibilities that you have. These groups are somewhere to go where you can get support for those, and you can get kind of support to step up and to take on those responsibilities. A big part of leadership development is being exposed to leadership opportunities and being able to learn about them. So if you don't have the confidence to step into that space, then you're automatically starting to hold yourself back. They might be less obvious, and I think we need real feedback on these skills. So these are your kind of skills around self-awareness. So empathy, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, that cultural awareness, that intuitiveness about judging situations and understanding not just how you're going to respond to it, but how others might. So the communities of practice having, or the talent groups having a space to go and reflect on situations and talk about different situations, understanding how you might react, understanding how other people might react, really will help develop those skills. And then finally, I think our response to situations that are outside of our control really defines us as leaders. And that's what the moments in time that we kind of reflect back on, and we think, oh, I wish I'd behaved differently then. I wish I'd just reacted in a slightly more controlled way. Or we might look back and think, oh my God, I'm awesome. I responded exactly how I thought I should. And it's those moments, I think, where either when perhaps behavior of other people in the team isn't quite as supportive as we'd want them to be, or the whole system being stacked up against you, that hopefully the communities practice means that you can take those situations and you can talk about them with peers, and you can think about what you might have done differently or share what you did really well, and all learn from each other. So the next slide I won't go into too much, but we will share these with the talent, Nursing Now Challenge team. This just highlights some of the benefits of participation. And I think that some of the key points are around getting different views, different perspectives, thinking more creatively around problems. So getting these ideas from peers who are like-minded, who want to help each other to develop, to help solve your problems, and to realize that hopefully you're not as alone as you might think you are in certain situations. Communication skills and building of empathy and emotional intelligence, absolutely key to good leadership. And then kind of going around the bottom to the left-hand side, we've got the building of networks, and this idea of inspiring others and really having a space where you can go to and be motivated to grab those opportunities, to apply for different roles, to step forward when you have a leadership opportunity in your work environment. I think that's it. That's about 10 minutes, isn't it, that I've been presenting. So again, this is how to contact the project team or to link up with us. And thanks for your time. It's a real pleasure to come and talk to you all. I just need to work. Oh, here you are. Thought I was going to forget how to unshare my screen then, but so thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, David. And it really is amazing to hear about these talent groups and really these communities of practice. I really liked the idea you shared of coffee room learning, because I think there's a lot of learning that actually happens in such a small social setting. So yeah, that's really amazing.
Definitely. Thank you.
I'd like to hand over now to Professor Joe White for our panel session, and really just to share about experiences from the field. We've got speakers, panelists coming from New Zealand and Australia. So Prof. Joe.
Thank you very much, Manashi. And hello again, and I do apologise for my coughing fit. This is what happens when one has a 16-month-old grandchild that goes a couple of days a week to childcare and then comes to me and gives me every bug that he possibly can. But it's a real pleasure to be able to introduce you to some colleagues of mine from this end of the world, Australia and New Zealand. And Keith Jones and Dan Shaw are from the program at South East Sydney Local Health District, one of the ones that I was mentioning before that put their hands up immediately and gave Lord Crisp one of his first wins in relation to the Nightingale Challenge. And also Jan Adams, who comes to us from across the ditch, as we say here, from New Zealand, the country that has done best in relation to fighting COVID, and acknowledgements to you, Jan, as we sit here in Sydney in total lockdown, doing very badly. And I think perhaps first, if I speak and ask a few questions of Keith and Dan, and have them talk to what is quite a large program. South East Sydney is one of our large local health districts here in New South Wales. And get a sense of that program, and then move to Jan in New Zealand, where Jan's program was the perfect example of how a really lovely boutique program can make a difference. So if that's all right with everybody, I think that's how we'll proceed. So Keith and Dan, can I ask you to unmute yourselves and let me ask you the first question. And Keith, I think you were probably one of the very first conversations happened with you, and that is, why did you say yes? You're muted.
Just taking it off. Oh, there we are. Great. A very good question, Jill. And I think very similar to when you said you got the phone call from Nigel Crisp around inviting some people from Australia to take part in the challenge. I think we got the call from you to invite us to see if we'd be interested to take part in the Nightingale Challenge. And of course, leadership has been such a key, important strategy for us in our district, and we thought it was such an excellent idea, not only to really start focusing and shining a light on our emerging nursing midwifery leaders, but also to be part of a much bigger social movement and learn and what's happening in other areas around the world, and also to share what we're doing also, and how we could maybe influence nursing leadership around the world and locally in Australia as well. So that in a kind of key message is one of the things that started us off for sure, and why we were interested.
Well, South East has been known, South East Sydney Local Health District has been known for its commitment to leadership for quite some time. And one of my dearest mates, Margie Martin, I know has been highly, before she retired, highly engaged with this. What, Keith and Dan, what do you think some of the lessons were that South East learned from having participated in this program?
Dan, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, certainly, Keith. So I think from my experience, I was reflecting on this again today and thinking about in preparation for sharing this evening. For me, lessons learned were really around engagement and how key it was to have multiple engagement strategies to both reach out to, but also be able to kind of spread across the district, and how important it was to engage our nursing midwifery leaders at all levels across our large organisation. As you mentioned, Jill, South Eastern Sydney is quite a large local health district here in Sydney, and being able to engage our nursing and midwifery leaders at all levels to help us to identify champions who could support us, but also to help us to engage with those early career and young nurses and midwives in their organisations. I suppose the other lesson was that for us, COVID featured quite heavily over the course of the challenge and created some disruptions, as it did for everyone. And I think we moved into that virtual model of, you know, we can't run face-to-face sessions. So how do we best engage with and support our challenges through this time? And we shifted to the virtual world, as did all of our colleagues. But some of the key lessons there were around digital literacy. And I think there's often an assumption that everybody of a certain age has a level of digital literacy that can support them to engage, and also access to the required technology to support that. So just thinking about when we do offer that virtual engagement, what are some of the potential barriers for some of the participants? And I suppose the last lesson learned for me was really around setting the purpose and the why, making sure that was really clear, that participants understood the purpose and the why of what they were signing up for, what it meant, what was in it for them, and how they were able to contribute.
And what was in it for them, Dan?
Yeah, certainly. So I think there are a number of things with our program. Keith already touched on some of it, and that was around connecting to that global social movement. I think seeing earlier when you spoke, Jill, you talked about showing our early career and young nurses and midwives that different view of nursing midwifery, and it's almost like taking them up off the dance floor, up onto the balcony and seeing it from that different perspective. And it was an opportunity to be able to do that for them. I think in terms of our program in particular, it was around creating networks and connections across the district. And in the way that we structured the program, we created a process where each site was supported by a site lead, and they ran a number of activities that engaged or provided opportunities for the participants to engage with their senior leaders at their site and create those connections and relationships with their directors of nursing and midwifery, with their senior nurse managers in a really informal yet supportive way. So they were some of the benefits and the what's in it for them, for the participants, as well as, I suppose, a broader suite of virtual engagement and webinars that we provided with them, but also the ability to participate in profiling. So as part of the program, we would go out and meet with the challengers and talk to them about what inspired them to join the challenge, what's important to them about leadership, and we'd share that story, we'd profile that, we'd share it across our LHD in our newsletters, but also with their senior leadership back at their site. So lots of pluses for the participants.
There certainly were. I was a little worried when you used the word profiling. I watched too many bad movies, clearly. But that's, I do understand how you use that term, because I've seen your newsletters and I think they're absolutely excellent. Probably the last thing for right now is to ask you both, how would you persuade, if you had to persuade, an employer to join the Nursing Now challenge? What were the benefits to your local health district from being engaged in this?
Well, I think from our perspective, Jill, we just see such a difference in the people that are actually taken on and being engaged in our programs. We just see that they become more confident. They're able to develop their own voice. They feel more confident to use that voice in a public forum to represent nursing and midwifery in a lot of our some of our councils that we have across the district. They're happy to advocate and speak up with our general manager to help advance nursing and midwifery in our own district. And also, you know, the skills, not just around voice and speaking up for nursing and midwifery, but also for the support they give to their teams and their colleagues and how they lead them. And also then ultimately, you know, the care that gives to the patients that they look after in their wards and services, sort of very briefly. So I just wondered if you had anything to add to that, Dan.
I think that was a really great overview, Keith, and I think you touched on that point of these young leaders coming through and creating cultures that support a culture of safety and quality and a person-centered approach.
Absolutely. Well, you'd persuade me if I had a local health district and some money that I needed to put towards something. I'm going to move across the Tasman now, but Dan and Keith, I will come back to you before we finish this segment, just so you can have a think about any last words you might want, of wisdom you might want to put into the porridge here. So kia ora, Jan. Can I welcome you as Jan? Let me just introduce Jan for a moment. Jan had a very large job over here in Australia with Bupa, and then semi-retired and moved to New Zealand and took on the Nightingale Challenge, as it was then, with a relatively small primary health network with GPs. So this is one of those gems, and I think it's really important to hear from Jan, because you know, we think about large local health districts or the equivalent, whatever you call them, wherever you are in the world, but it's really important. It doesn't matter how big or how small. This is a really valuable thing to do. So Jan, some of the same questions, if I may. Why did you do it?
Kia ora, Jill, and ngā mihi nui, kia koutou katoa. Very warm greetings to all of you who are joining from across the world. It's a delight to be here, and New Zealand brings you greetings. So why we did this was I had been aware of the Nightingale Challenge from my previous role when I was Global Chief Nurse with Bupa. And when I went to the Primary Health Network, I knew that there were a number of young nurses, as well as some more mature nurses, who were desperate for sort of leadership, guidance and support. And so luckily our chief executive of the organisation is a nurse, so she believes very strongly and passionately in nurses and nursing, and the future being nursing in primary care. But what we knew was our young nurses wanted some leadership support, but our more mature nurses equally hadn't had good opportunities and training to step up as nurse leaders. So we put a program in place that gave them, we planned everything to be sort of face-to-face, and we learned very quickly with COVID that, like Dan and Keith, we moved online. So we started simply. We just wanted to give our nurse leaders the opportunity to understand about leadership and development, and we wanted to raise the profile of nurses as leaders within the organisation. And so the Nightingale Challenge sort of gave us a platform really to take it from there and move forward.
And what lessons do you think you and the organisation have learned by the engagement?
I think the lessons that we learned were, you have to be adaptable. And it's not just us being adaptable as the presenters, but understanding that all of our nurses that were working in a GP setting, whether they were, you know, 2 nurses in a small general practice, or whether they were a large practice that employed about 20 nurses, when we moved into sort of the COVID situation, we very quickly understood more and more these nurses have lives. And so we had to adapt. We went to Zoom, but they told us what they wanted rather than what we wanted to give them. And so we very quickly adapted, and we did our sessions at 7 o'clock in the evening every Thursday. And we had some sessions on all day Saturday, because these were the only times that nurses could get out of a GP practice and take time for their own development and education. And the reason I say we became adaptable was it was not unusual as well to have the nurses dial in from home with a cup of coffee and the children sitting on their knee before they went to bed or whatever. So you learn to sort of adapt and present in very different ways. And I think the other thing that we learned was it really raised the profile of nurses and nursing, because primary care is very general practitioner focused, and you hear a lot about general practitioners. Nurses are sort of the unsung heroes, and I don't use that term lightly, that are just get on all the time. And what it did was really refocus the general practitioners about, actually, we've got some amazing nurses here, and this is a great opportunity for them. We want to support it.
I think the horse is bolted on the name general practitioner, but one of the things I'd love to do is be able to wave a magic wand and rename general practice as community practice. Yep. Because I think when you use the term general practice in the community mind, it becomes synonymous with the general practitioner, and that makes nurses invisible. And I know in New Zealand, nurses actually hold up general practice and have done for many generations. Jan, would you do it again? And would you like to try and convince other people to join the Nursing Now challenge?
I would say absolutely I'd do it again, Jill, because we learned a lot, our nurses learned a lot, and the growth and development in some of the younger nurses, as well as some of the older nurses as well, was just a pleasure to see. And so you can't say, no, I'd never do it again. I would persuade other organisations to do it. In fact, some of our colleague PHOs looked at what we were doing and, want to take parts of it. So I think everybody adapts. But I think, yes, absolutely, I'd do it again. And I think the thing I like about it was actually I didn't need permission to do it. We just got on and did it and adapted it and ran with it. And we saw some really good results. The one thing I should say as well is I talk about the older nurses. We ran it as a parallel programme. So we ran the Nightingale Challenge for the under 35s, and we ran the Pinnacle Challenge for the over 35s, because we heard very strongly from that group of people, please don't leave us out. And I think as you look at people's journeys, what we learned was the over 35s had been poorly served in terms of their own leadership and development. So, it covered both aspects really, and it was really great to see nurses learning together and more senior nurses sometimes learning and experiencing great stuff from the younger nurses than the emerging leaders. So yes, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.
Such an important point, and in fact I'm not sure that any of our participants can see Lord Chris, but I was watching him on my screen nodding away, because I vividly remember this conversation at the Nursing Now board. Why are we only doing? And very much the conversation said, if we make it for the younger nurses, the other ones are going to ask for it, and that's to be applauded. We won't count them because we were specifically aiming for the 20. We got the 31, but we were aiming for a really stretched target of 20,000. And I must admit, I had my doubts about at the beginning whether we'd get it. But 31, and now we're going for 100,000. But we really were quite confident that if we put it on for the, if we put it forward for the younger nurses or the early career nurses, it really would be a push for those who might not have been brave enough to ask for something for themselves as mid-career nurses. But this gave them the push and the permission to do that. Jan, do you have any final comments?
No, I mean, I've loved it really, and I've learned a lot about primary care and the way nurses work as well. So I think, no matter where you are in your career, all of these experiences are really valuable. And I think the advice I'd give to young nurses is just enjoy every moment. You've got a fantastic career. There are amazing opportunities out there for you. And really, it's up to you to sort of make the most of it, because, it's as big or as successful as you want it to be. But yeah, don't ever be put off by people saying you can't do it, because you absolutely can, and just, believe in yourself and go for it, really.
Thank you, Jan. Thanks very much. And back to Keith and Dan for last words.
Keith here. For me, it's that we're going to keep going. We're just about to kick off the program again in another month or so. And I'd really like to thank our senior nursing and midwifery executives for their support. Otherwise, these programs wouldn't be possible, because they support people to be able to attend and come along and engage in our programs. So I'm really excited about being part of it again this year, the Nursing Now Challenge, and look forward to sharing how that goes with everybody in this global community. Thanks. Thank you.
Terrific. Dan?
Thanks, Jill. I think I echo Keith's thanks there to our senior leadership. I think that's been key, our senior nurses and midwives in supporting the program. But I think for the organisations that are wanting to get involved is just go for it. Be brave, be curious. Any investment in leadership, development and our nurses and midwives is not lost. It's you'll get so much more out of it, and just keep working hard. And for those early career nurses and midwives, or any of our nurses and midwives, is get on board, take the opportunities, and there are so many out there. Connect with each other and share.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Keith. Thanks to the Antipodean mob. Those of us down under and on a very different time zone. And I'd just like to finish by just saying, if there's one thing COVID's taught us, COVID has absolutely reinforced the importance of nurses and nursing, that we have to have a voice in health policy, that we do own the space, along with, now we know, epidemiologists who are now out of the woodwork, having been fairly silent for a long time, and understanding that absolutely into the future, public health, primary health care is absolutely where it is. Nigel Lord Crisp, quite right. If you haven't read his book, Health is Made at Home, Hospitals Are for Repair. I chortled when I heard saw that title. But we nurses have such a role in the out of hospital as well as the in hospital care, and we need leadership in order to be able to be articulate, in order to be able to influence health policy, and in order to be able to change the emphasis of healthcare in so many of our countries away from hospital and towards community-based care. So I'll say thank you, Manishi, for letting me get on my soapbox, and I hand back to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Prof. Jill, and really to that panel for such a motivational and inspiring discussion. I was just sitting here and just enjoying how you were sharing, and really speaking as a young nurse. I think it's this mentorship that we really value, in being able to get mentors, being able to share with us and really give us that motivation and that inspiration that this can be done, and the future is ours. So that was really amazing. I really thank you so much for that discussion. I would like to move on to our next segment, which is a segment where we will be taking questions now. And we will just be going through questions that are within our Q&A box. I see a number of the questions that have been put in the Q&A box have been answered in the box. And I think a number of the questions are coming around as to the program and the Nursing Now Challenge program and what it is about and how to be part of it. So I see that I think Hannah has been able to highlight and answer quite a number of the questions. I'll just go through them just to share. So the first question was, how are you evaluating this program? What are the results you're aiming for? And what do you mean by catalyst? And the response there was, we aim to reach 100,000 nurses, which is the figure I think that has been for this webinar. So we're now going for 100,000 nurses and midwives by 2023 with leadership development training opportunities. And by catalyst, we mean the Nightingale Challenge sparked a movement among health employers globally and engaged them in a leadership development conversation, leading to the investment in their early career nurses and midwives. So that's really just sharing about the impact of the program and the impact that it is having. We've got a question that has been posed that says, and I think I will just open this up to really our panelists. And the question is from Suhail Ahmed. And it says, how may we empower nurses across the world? Many countries may have discouraged nurses. Why are we not preparing a plan to bring nurses on one platform across the world? So I think that question is around motivation. So looking at being able to motivate nurses and motivate nurses across the world in being able to reach for leadership, to engage in leadership and being involved in leadership development programs. I don't know, would anyone, any of our panelists want to comment on that question that has been posed in the Q&A box?
Shall I just, can I say a word while our panelists are thinking about what they might answer? And that really is just to reinforce the fact that this is a top-down and a bottom-up and a meet in the middle thing. And I would put anyone who's online to remember that at the last World Health Assembly, all of your countries signed on to the strategic directions for nursing and midwifery. And in part of that, there's an absolute pathway of the sort of things that we need to be doing in terms of education, regulation, leadership, each country having a chief nursing and midwifery officer who can advocate at high policy level and present the evidence at policy tables. So there's a whole lot that countries have signed on to. So nurses, don't be afraid to go and approach your politicians and say, remember, World Health Assembly, you signed on to this document, but know the document well, do your homework. So I think that there's the possibility to sign on to local programs, but to never forget that you've got the backing of things like the International Council of Nurses and the and the WHO and the UN and the Sustainable Development Goals to fall back on, so that you're not asking about things for nurses for nursing's sake. You're asking about things for nurses for health's sake and for the economy of the country, which is highly dependent on the health of the country. So I'll stop there and I hope I've given the others a moment to think.
Thank you so much, Jill. I see David has also raised his hand.
Yeah, I think just to completely agree with Jill there, that it's something Jill said earlier as well, that it's a long-term piece of work, isn't it? That real influence at the top. And I think that since the start of the Nursing Now campaign a couple of years ago, there is a shift. There is that real senior discussion about what nurses can do and what nurses can contribute, and an understanding of that we're not going to change these key kind of health outcomes without the help of nurses. So, and I think as well as that senior shift, there does need to be that push and that understanding at all levels that we all need to work together to drive forward. So I think I've just said what Jill said in different words there, but yeah, completely agree. And I think it's a long-term piece of work, but it's exciting and we're going in the right direction, which is really good to see.
And Menashe, if I can just add, I think it's really important that nurses support each other to influence the bigger agenda. And what you've got here is access to a massive community. There's lots of free resources. There's lots of opportunities to jump on a webinar, to get your voice heard. You know, drop us a note and tell us what your story is, and we will try and amplify the efforts that you're making. And that's one of the real goals, actually, of what we're trying to achieve. So we're all here to support each other and help us all influence the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I see Lord Nigel as well has raised his hand.
Thanks, Menashe. And do call me Nigel rather than this. Lord is helpful to get you in the room, but Nigel when I'm in it, please. Two quick points. I mean, firstly, Jill is absolutely right in the top-down, bottom-up bit. But secondly, I just sort of slightly challenge the question. I'm not sure you want one platform. I think you want a whole diversity of platforms that are talking to each other. And there's a great motto, which I don't know if people are familiar with in terms of getting stuff done. Start small, think big, go fast. And actually that's what we did on Nursing Now. And if you think about it, they're all important, those bits. Start with a bit you know. Don't try and create some global platform. Start local, but think about how you make it bigger and go fast, and then they'll never catch up with you. You know, momentum is really important in making change. So, you know, those three things, and anyone listening and thinking about what they're doing locally, you know, those three things work, I think, extremely well.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Nigel. And I think that's an amazing end, actually, to our session for today with that statement on start small, think big, and go fast. Really just want to thank everyone for joining us today for this session. And really just to share and encourage employers and universities across the world to really engage in the Nursing Now Challenge program. It's really amazing. We've got a lot of testimonies from early career nurses from across the world that are really benefiting from this. And we would really value in being able to have new employers and others being able to enjoy, to join in as well. Really just want to also highlight about to early career nurses and midwives that are on this platform today, and to share about the Nursing Now Challenge Global Solutions Initiative. And we've actually got two challenges that we've got running at the moment. We've got a challenge on climate change and digital health solutions, which are two amazing challenges that are being run together with the Wish Foundation. So join in. We're looking forward to being able to have your solutions towards these two key issues, and looking forward to being able to have a lot of solutions coming in. I know there's a bit of prize money. I think Lisa alluded to it earlier as well. So that's really exciting, and looking forward to being able to have a lot of participants and a lot of people engaging. And with that, just want to thank you all for being with us today, and looking forward to connecting for our next webinar. Thank you so much.